You've been accused of exploiting black culture for profit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you respond to people who call you a culture vulture?
I think every white person is called a culture vulture in hip hop, including Eminem, including Leo Cohen, including Steve Rifkin, including everybody. So to me, it's just another thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when people really know who I am, like you know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and know about my family and know about what I'm like off camera, I don't think anyone would actually say that.
Do you think you'd have the same platform if you were black?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Because you've seen so many black people come after me with similar types of platforms that have done great. Look at Sean Cotton, look at Gillian Wallow, look at Nori. Now, they don't do exactly what I do, but I think it's overall in the same vein. We talk to a lot of the same people. We ask some of the same questions.
Do you think your interviews contribute to hip-hop history, or do you think you're documenting trauma for clicks?
I think it's history.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's history, but at the end of the day, who doesn't have trauma? Who doesn't have trauma in their life? Name one person who's had a life devoid of trauma.
It's
Nobody.
impossible. Yeah.
You, me, my cameraman, your security, we've all had traumatic experiences. And at the end of the day, sharing those traumatic experiences is something that we do in our regular lives anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have I ever ambushed somebody? You know, like for example, like I was talking about, with D. Ray Davis, right? A friend of mine. And there was an interview where he talked about being molested by these horrible looking 30-year-olds, right? And I kind of laughed based on the way that he was describing the story. But me and him have a real friendship.
And he's also a comedian.
He's
so I'm
also
sure he
a
was
comedian, so he's
yeah,
saying
yeah,
it in a comedic style.
Yeah.
But people hated me over my reaction or even bringing this up. But at the end of the day, this is his truth. This is something, that he's talked about before, and he didn't have a problem with it. But other people have more of a problem than the actual people that I'm interviewing. And that's okay.
Some people might say you had somebody ambushed, though.
Who?
Remember when Tariq Nasheed walked in on, what was the dude's name? I can't remember his name.
Tommy Sotomayor.
Tommy Sotomayor.
We've talked about this. And Tariq is coming back on my show. I've talked to both him and Tommy about it. Now, Tommy still thinks there's some weird conspiracy theory about it, but I did not have him ambushed. What had happened was I interviewed Tariq, and then people in the comments were like, oh, you should interview Tommy. I had no idea there was a beef between these two. It wasn't in my notes. Like, I think after I interviewed Tariq, I released the whole Tommy interview. You got to see the whole interview. Tommy was the one that was mentioning Tariq. And when he mentioned it, I just went on to the next topic. It wasn't even a talking point. Now, the thing is that Tommy was doing an interview at the same location that Tariq was doing it, and Tommy was on social media saying, I'm about to do Vlad TV today. I just drove down, about to do Vlad TV, go down to the Vlad TV studios. Now Tariq is watching this, and Tommy, I think, had talked some shit about his daughter or something like that. So, Tariq took it upon himself to confront him, unfortunately, in the actual interview as opposed to waiting outside for him, and that's what happened. But I did not plan for Tariq to come there. And in fact, me and Tariq really had beef for years over that situation. Does that sound like a setup? Yeah, no, me and him just recently, because here's the thing, like, I didn't realize, I saw an interview where basically Tariq said, oh, Vlad knew my beef with Tommy and he purposely brought him in to aggravate the situation. And I'm like, oh, that's what he thought? So I got on the phone with him, we had a conversation. I said, I had no idea you guys had beef. I'm gonna release the interview and you'll see for yourself. I never even brought your name up.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that Tommy was coming. It was the same studio. Tariq showed up. Nothing happened. There was no fight. It was just a bunch of grown men arguing in each other's faces. I think Tariq brought him like a Coon Award or something, like a Coon Train Award or something, which, Tommy,
I remember that. Yeah,
Tommy left that. But no, I absolutely did not set him up. And the only person who's claiming that is Tommy, which at the end of the day is just false. I've always said this, and I have the proof to show for it.
Would you ever pull an interview if you thought it might hurt somebody's life?
Would I pull it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you done that?
I haven't had a reason to at this point. No.
You built the platform.
But hold on, let me just answer that question. I have had people do interviews and afterwards say, can you take this part out? And I've always said yes. Always said yes, especially if the interview hasn't come out yet.
So content isn't king for you?
No, because it's long term. Like one clip doesn't change things. Like for example, like I'm not going to say who, but there is a well-known Atlanta artist. When we did the interview, he appeared like he was just high out of his mind. Like, he did the interview, he was sweating, he was like nodding off. It was a mess. It was like an absolute mess. And after about 20 minutes, his people were like, hey, interview's just not gonna happen today. Is that okay? I'm like, that's cool, we got you. You know, we redid the interview at a later point, but I never released that first interview, even though it would have gone super viral, because here's this known Atlanta artist literally sweating in an air-conditioned room, you know, barely able to get his words out. It would have gone super viral, but I never put it out. And he even was like worried about that. And when I talked to him, I said, I got you. I'm not going to put it out. And I never put it out. No one will ever see it. So this is me.
If you had to admit one time where you crossed the line for views, what moment would it be? Because we've all been there.
I mean, look, the whole Joe Budden ransom situation, where I posted the video of that guy getting smacked, you know, by ransoms people on his front porch. I think that kind of crossed the line. This was very early in my career. This is kind of like one of the first like hip hop viral moments, and kind of caused a rift between me and Joe Budden, because I'd interviewed Joe not too long before that. You know, at the end of the day, the dude that got slapped wasn't even Joe Budden. It was like a friend of his and so forth. And I think in that case, I probably would have looked at that, like the 2025 Vlad, the 52-year-old Vlad would have looked at that and said, nah, I'm not going to put that out. You know, like, for example, like Taxstone, right? During his trial, he wanted to do an interview because he's like, look, the jury is told not to watch the media, but they watch the media.
Absolutely.
Right? And doing an interview would be a way to get his story out without taking the stand. But from my point of view, I said, you're probably right, but this interview was probably going to be used in the trial. And if you got convicted and I knew I had a part in it, it would break my heart. So I just told him I'm not going to do the interview. And I remember Tax felt a certain type of way about it. He wasn't mad, but he was, you could tell he wasn't happy with my results. I said, listen, if you want to do it with someone else, I got, you know, that's your choice. But me personally, I know it'll get a lot of views. We're in the middle of a murder trial. Everyone's covering it. I know it'll get a lot of views, but meaning that you're my friend, I just don't want to do it. And I never did it.